Welcome to Amplify, the personal brand entrepreneur show. Today on the show, Bob is speaking with Max Habeck.
What I never imagined, I think, how the business has become virtual. Initially, when I set out, I thought, no, I need to be going to see people constantly, and across Europe and whatnot. And I think that has totally changed. I think the entry barriers for me as an individual or service provider, they really have shrunk in quite a nice way.
Hi there and welcome back to Amplify, the personal brand entrepreneur show. My name's Bob Gentle and every week I'm joined by incredible and inspiring people who share what makes their business work. If you're new to the show, take a second right now to subscribe in whichever player you use. And if you are listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure and click that new follow option in the top right-hand corner of the page, or in your app rather. That way Apple knows to queue me up every time I publish a new episode, and that way we both win. So before I jump into introducing this week's guest, just a quick reminder once again that after nearly 200 of these interviews, I've learned a thing or two about what makes business work online. And it turns out success does leave clues, and I want to give you that map. Jump over to my website and grab your copy of the Personal Brand Business Roadmap. It's everything you need to start, scale, or just fix your personal brand business. It's yours for free as a gift from me. Now, most weeks on the show, we focus on how to stand out as a small business or as an entrepreneur. But what if you want to stand out inside a large organization as a personal brand entrepreneur, so to speak, rather than as an entrepreneur? It's safe to say that in large organizations, the same rules apply as in regular business. If you want to stand out inside or outside an organization, the same rules apply. So this week, my guest is Max Habeck, and we're going deep into how to stand out in a global corporation. Max, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Bob. Delighted to be here.
So I'm really excited to speak to you about this particular thing because a lot of my contacts, a lot of the people who know me, they're not running organizations. They're not business leaders, so to speak, but it still matters to them that they're visible in their organization and that they're making the best out of every opportunity they can. So I know this is really your area of focus in a big way. So that was why I wanted to have you on the show. But for the listener who doesn't know you, who is Max Habeck and what do you do? What's the Max Habeck story?
Yeah, the Max Habeck story. It's really about leadership development in the Big Four. And I work exclusively with leaders in the Big Four firms, which are the major accounting and integrated professional services firms. Just think Ernst & Young, think Deloitte, think KPMG, PwC, and similar firms. And it's really, for me, helping people, leaders in those firms, build standout businesses while having a life. I used to be a leader at one of them myself, looking after 1,100 people in one of the fastest growing businesses globally. And basically, in a way, figured it out and been struck by the fact how important the behaviors I've been learning over the years are also now in my changed life. And for me, it's really about bringing excitement, confidence, and joy to people in the Big Four and similar firms and wherever they may be.
So one of the things we've had conversations in the past, one of the things that strikes me about working in these big organizations is the pressure is on. What is the pressure like for these people sort of day to day? What are the expectations on them?
Well, the interesting part is so you enter the profession as a junior consultant, as a junior auditor, and you become a subject matter expert. Usually you like numbers, you do deep dives, you get excited about it, you are totally worked up by showing your client new insight, and you're progressing throughout your career, and then all of a sudden more and more other things become important, for instance, and the major part is selling. So the pressures people find themselves under is, and even after having reached the highest level, and the highest level in these professional services firms is a role basically of partner. You are a co-owner of the business, and you are supposed to be running your own business, finding clients, developing them, serving them. So you're finally in the role you always wanted to be in. But all of a sudden, you find out and say, oh my God, this is much more demanding than it ever has been. The firm is expecting so much from me. You always pride also yourself on being a subject matter expert. And yet again, the firm says, well, this is all great, but now you need to become a C-level advisor. You need to be working with the top executives. You need to bring to bear all the services the firm has to offer and really be an integrated provider of services. You need to generate the revenues, and you get your scorecard, and the firm is expecting from you a certain top line you're contributing, and once in a while you're getting desperate and saying, so where is this coming from? Oh my God. You have team members, and you always provide it, you say it again here. You have team members, people supporting you, working with you. Yet again,
That's fine.
you're working with team members, people supporting you, and you always prided you on being a great people person, but you sense they have all become more demanding, and you need to figure it out. And moreover, you wouldn't be there if you hadn't been able to work really hard. And you get to a point also where you start realizing, will this never change? The hours remain brutal, the strain may be showing at home, and you look around you and you wonder, why are some of the others so much more at ease? So that's it, not quite in a nutshell, but these are
Yeah.
kind of the 5, 6 areas I always see people dealing with, and I dealt myself with as a former partner in one of the major firms.
So listening to that, I think there's a lot of parallels just with regular business ownership, that a lot of the time people grow into a business ownership role because they were a great technician. You speak about subject matter experts. Most people are great at what they do, which is why they do well in business. And then they find themselves as a business owner trying to grow, building a team. It's the same when you come in as a partner, I guess. And the rules are different, the expectations are different, and you have to grow in other areas, I guess. So for me, there's a lot to relate to there. Within your practice, then, how are you helping them grow in these areas? What are I guess, the tools that you bring to bear? Because these are busy people, they don't have time to waste, and they don't suffer fools gladly, I imagine. So, what is your process for helping them get to a point where they're probably in crisis, or sometimes to a point where they are at the same level of ease or similar as those people that they look up to?
Yeah, it's a great question, Bob. And I'm just reflecting on a discussion I had with a partner in one of the firms just yesterday. And I was struck by the fact that, he is about 40 years old. He has been a partner for 3.5 years. So he has been really on the fast track. And he is starting to realize now and saying, oh my God, I still have 20 years to go. What am I going to be doing now? How is my future going to be panning out? Is this just continuing? Is this going to be more and more and more? And what I have done, and I have been part of the industry, I mean, for all my career. I started out in the 90s as an associate in a strategy consulting firm, and then moved on from there. But what I really have defined is what I call the 3 partner powers. And the 3 partner powers are market up, team up, and lead up. And I'm pretty vocal about that. These are the 3 areas you need to be succeeding in order to have a great career. And what is so interesting about it is it's not really different from what you need to be doing as an entrepreneur. For instance, market up. It's really about shaping your profile, define your ideal clients, and develop your go to market system. I mean, think about it for a moment. In the major firms, you have hundreds of partners. What is great about the major firms is there's tremendous market access. However, your co partners need to understand what you do in order for them to be able to present you and your service at one of their clients. So it's really, I mean, get clear your profile, tell them, who is your ideal client. And then also you need to have kind of a rigorous system how you go about developing your market. And clearly in the big four, it's more internally, I would argue, than externally, because the market reach is very, very strong. Moving over to the team up part, it's really about determining your role, how you cooperate with others, how you leverage skills you find in the firm, how you find people willing to support you. And it's really about establishing your relationship outside of the corporate environment. You probably would say, how do you partner? How do you partner with other firms or so? So here you need to partner internally, and that's what I call team up. And then I think what really makes a difference is the lead up part. You find yourself, after having been a partner for a couple of years, people start to think, or you start to think, gee, I mean, there are quite a few around me. How do I stick out? Is there a next step for me? So it's really about you setting your agenda, articulating your core beliefs, and sharpen your presence. And I think that is so comparable to the outside world, but at the same time, very few have a clear system, determined a clear system, a clear pathway for themselves. So, and that's where I come in, and that's where I help, because I think it is really about keeping up the excitement, the confidence, and also the joy you as a professional experienced in the early years of your career. But as I said a little earlier, and then you are a partner and you find yourself and saying, oh my God, I still have a couple of years to go. I have decades to go. How do I keep the energy? What is interesting? And I think you can shape it.
I think what's interesting to me listening to what you're describing there is when you're great at something, people promote you. And you hear the stories of the great sales professional that was put in a sales manager role. He never wanted to be a manager, but because he was great at his job, he was sort of drawn up the organization a little bit. And the problem with celebrating success like that is it means that those people who are great at something, as long as they're continuing to do their best, they're constantly being put in positions where their comfort zones are being tested, and they're being constantly put in positions where they're uncomfortable. And I think that's why these partner powers, they give your ideal customer a tool set with which to become comfortable, to move from a state of distress through discomfort to a state of ease through discomfort, if you see what I mean.
Absolutely. And totally echo your point, Bob. I have seen over the years in this industry too frequently, partners getting promoted to, a regional position, more of a leadership position. And they used to be the greatest rainmaker the world had ever seen. But somehow the firm felt, there was a need to provide him or her with the next step up. And interestingly enough, the teams in the firms, uh, many times have been much more observant than the leadership level. That within the younger ranks, you heard so and so was promoted to such and such, and people looked at themselves and said, "Really? I mean, come on. He is a great client handler, a great salesperson, and whatnot, but he cannot stand in front of any group. I mean, that but he cannot talk. He cannot. Has he ever said anything really engaging? And so it's kind of really, really interesting. And I think, granted, we all cannot become the greatest leaders the world has ever seen. But I think you can, with a plan in hand, you can start working at it. And I think also you need to be, don't go all over the place. Focus on what makes the difference. Unfortunately, these firms are there are so many systemic behaviors. You once, you joined the firm, you observe what the, quote unquote elders are doing, and that must be right. And you will also find that, I mean, certain behaviors are just totally silly. They're not adding anything, and still people keep doing them. And what the partners powers are helping clients with, it's really about, let's make sure you get your focus right and you start working at things that truly matter. And also be clear what you say no to. And unfortunately, over the years, and you know what? I've been as guilty as any other partner. There is, certain things are thrown at you, and you pick them up, well, knowing, well, this is not quite fitting. You're not really ready to have a discussion right now with your managing partner about it. At the same time, you feel a little, in a way, honored and say, oh yeah, Cook, see, he is entrusting me with this, but it's not really helping you. And funny enough, I have had, after people have become partners, I have had quite a few discussions when I was still a managing partner with junior partners at the time, who immediately got approached by the system and saying, hey, couldn't you do this and that for us? And thankfully, I remember one of the partners calling me up and saying, hey, Max, is this really adding anything right now to what I should be doing? And I thought, it was almost like, thank you for that question, Daniel. Because no, it's not. You need to be focusing on really something else right now. And the role they offered you, that's great. After you got, your swimming certificate as a partner, but not right now. Make sure you're not getting confused. And the big organizations have a tendency to confuse people too.
So, a place I would like to go, I guess, is you had a great career in a giant organization, and now you're doing things your own way. It's really jumping from one end of the spectrum right through to the other as a solopreneur, so to speak. Although I know you have a team, but nevertheless, it's the Max Habeck organization. It's not Ernst & Young or KPMG or any of these big boys. So how have you found that transition? And what, I guess, the real question is, selfishly, is what are the biggest lessons that you've taken from being in a giant organization and applied to your own small business? What have been the greatest assets from that experience in your new experience?
Well, I think one of the greatest assets definitely has been that I don't shy away from presenting myself, whether it being, little LinkedIn videos, and I don't have, because I've been talking to groups of, you know, I don't know, a couple of thousand people. And so I think that is definitely one of the assets. I think my career has provided me with the ability to basically climb on any stage and articulate something sensible and you know worthwhile for the audience. So I think that is really great. At the same time, the challenge as a solopreneur, I mean, it's quite different. I also had to learn, and I'm most definitely one of the perfectionists out there. And it's really, or it was really easy with the team you had been working with for years. Team members knowing what these standards were. And as an solopreneur, that is much more complicated because it's really you. You are the team. And in order to really grow the business, you need to start leveraging yourself better. I mean, I'm totally clear on where my strengths are. I have always been a creator. I like to stand in front of people. I like to generate ideas. I have certain expectations for delivery, and I think the realization, hey, that the workbench, it's not just the creator, the or the R&D and design department, but also the workbench, and they all are called Max. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. But I think the realization is really really important. That also to establish a real business, you need to put a plan in place and you need to work the plan. And there are really lead indicators and there are lag indicators. So I think really monitoring lead indicators that certain activities are happening is really, really key to generate, or produce the lag indicators, and for simplicity's sake, it's really from the number of client contacts as a lead indicator you have had over the course of the week, and then as a lag indicator later on the revenues generated basically. And I think that kind of understanding has been tremendously helpful.
And I guess another question I'm always very curious to ask is, with your business now, which parts of it do you find personally the hardest? Which parts are really not your comfort zone?
um, I really like a lot the market facing activities. I'm getting incredible energy out of talking to potential clients, to also in the marketing space. I really like, whatever has to do with developing clients, serving clients. I really love it. I think the struggles really are, when it gets about, you know, checking things. I have this, certain things are really happening. And my whole career, I think, I always been a very strong believer that people, want to do a great job, and also I think one of the learnings then for me has become that I need to do a better job in explaining what I want, where in the past, it was kind of easy because somehow people around me got me. They understood from the get-go. And I think that definitely has changed. And that is a challenge and something I mean, kind of struggle with it weekly, to be honest.
I think something I hear from a lot of entrepreneurs is, on the one hand, systems, that they don't have the systems in place that give them the freedom. I think when you're working in a large organization, you have the back office systems there. There is built-in efficiencies. Whereas when you have to create them from scratch or depend on other people to bring them to you, they don't have those systems necessarily. And so then you're left vulnerable in the situation where you either educate or you do it yourself. And that's not a nice place for someone like you who's used to having these systems just work, I'm guessing.
No, I think you are absolutely right. I think one of the challenges. I mean, I'm all for systems, but there's also the realization they are not created, by someone else but me in
Yeah.
the end. Or I bring in other people who help me create the system. And I think that's exactly where I'm at right now. I think over the last year or so, it's been quite clear to me that I need to build a team and I need to really enable them to get certain things in place. And it may not be the picture perfect solution Max would have created, but it's, you know, much better than than without. So I think that's part of the realization too. You're getting to a point where you kind of look at it and say, by God, I mean, I can design a long list, of what I need, but we need to kind of start doing and get it executed. And I think
Yeah.
that's kind of the constant challenge. It's about priorities. What do you do first? What is can be delayed. And clearly, I mean, when you start out, and say, hey, let's kind of work first on the top line, find some clients, and the rest will take place later on. But I would urge, all entrepreneurs, make sure you're not losing sight of, what else needs to be taking place as well. And I think as an entrepreneur, I've been looking for kind of guides, people who have done it before. I simply don't have the time and the capacity to educate myself on each and every aspect of what is feasible right now, and for instance, watch YouTube videos, and there is no time for it. So
Yeah.
I'm looking for people who can help, who have done it before, and and either farm it out on a per job basis, or bring someone on and say, hey, can you be my integrator here, for instance?
So one of the things I know about you is you're busy. You're a really busy guy, and you are ambitious, although you're no longer working in Big Four, and that was your choice. You are ambitious for the Max Habeck PartnerPowers business. And I think there'll be some people listening thinking, what, he only works for like 4 or 5 different organizations. For the person who doesn't necessarily know, how many people work in these organizations
Well,
globally?
the big four, they are 350,000 plus globally. Uh, and what is really attractive about them, I mean, for me as an provider of services targeting them, I mean, there are individual country organizations. I think also what I never imagined, I think, how the business has become virtual. Initially, when I set out, I thought, no, I need to be going to see people constantly, and across Europe and whatnot. And I think that has totally changed. I think the entry barriers for me as an individual service provider, they really have shrunk in quite a nice way. So when I just look at the big four right now, I mean, looking, and for instance, I mean, the big fours are all present in more than 120 countries. So I mean, it's sizable. They are structured all the same way. So they are kind of divisions. They are sub business units. So the opportunity it's for me, and also having the experience in these businesses, I mean, it's really a great market to be in right now.
And I want to ask a question about that market in a little bit for anybody that's thinking, you know what, I think I might have something to serve that audience with. But what I wanted to focus on, and the reason I asked the question was, people hear people in my chair talking about the importance of niching all the time. And when I first looked at what you were doing, I thought that looks like an incredibly narrow niche. But actually, it's broad enough to support a good sized business. And that was really where I wanted to go. That you, at the moment, it's Max Habeck driving this, but I know you have plans to grow. And that sort of projecting yourself 5 years into the future is really what I wanted to look at, is how do you see this organization growing?
I think I see it really become a true partner power. To be honest, I think there is a great opportunity for people like me who have been there, done it. I think I have in dealing with clients, I have kind of immediate credibility because I used to be one of them. I have been through it, and I think there is this big discussion between coaches. Oh, should the coach know? And it's not really about advice, but I think it's a lot about empathy. What clients tell me is, "Oh my God, we definitely see that you understand that the first day of the new fiscal year, your revenue meter starts pretty much at zero, and you better get busy." And I think that is something which you can. It's very hard if you haven't been there, and so I see this really grow with a group of partners over the years where we really address the issues partners are facing. I mean, really helping them yet again build a standout practice while having a life. And I think that's kind of key what we do. And that's what we want to be recognized for here.
And I guess selfishly, on behalf of the listener, there will be people thinking, yeah, I think I have something to bring these big four businesses. Obviously, you have credibility because you were one of them, but they represent quite a healthy, affluent market. And if somebody was listening thinking, okay, I have something that I would like to bring to that audience, how would you mentor someone like that to go about it?
Um, it's interesting. I mean, the moment you are running a decent sized business in one of the big four, you're getting approached by the outside market. People trying to pitch you coaching, training, presentation drafting, whatever services. And what I find so interesting is over my career, I only worked with a very selected few. First of all, did not have time to, and I think this is critical, make sure people get what you offer and what it does. And I think that is one of the observations I had as a buyer. It was like, I'm not getting it. How is this helping me? And I think it is also executive search services, for instance. They all pitch a good game and so on, but they never understand really that whoever I want to bring into the business, I still have a boss. And they need to make it easy for me so I can kind of further the course here. And I think that is sometimes it's totally convoluted. And I didn't have the time to really, take a bite, chew it, and it was impossible. So I think really be totally clear, think about the potential client and sit back and make it kind of clear what is it they get from you and how does it make their life better. Other than that, I mean, there are incredible hurdles to get in there. And if that is not, and if you're not finding promoters, to really see the value, I think it's going to be hard.
So really, I guess it boils down to relationships. You need to build relationships first. You need to build an understanding of the organization and the people in that organization. You need to demonstrate value before you've taken any money, and then hope one of those people that you've gone out to bat for reciprocates. But you don't get nothing for nothing.
Yeah, I would probably say, before you take money, I mean, before you take, anybody's time, I would say,
Yeah.
Because
Before you extract value.
Don't have time. And so make it compelling and make it totally clear. Other than that, I think it's, in this kind of a business, in this kind of environment, people are really, really ambitious. They are kind of goal getters. So whatever, if it's distracting, the interest, or if it's complicated, they're not picking it up.
So, Max, I'm looking at the time. We should probably bring things to a close quite soon. If somebody's listening thinking, I like the sound of those partner powers, or if they would like to get a little bit closer to you or connect with you, how would you like them to do that?
Well, I guess great, starting point is my website, maxhabeck.com. I also have my PartnerPowers scorecard out there, which in essence leads people through 20 plus diagnostic questions and providing a score where people are at. I have also a couple of articles out there and a couple of very pointed videos, which some people may be helpful, because I'm also totally clear. It's not just applicable in the Big Four. It's almost in a way that's how corporations work and what corporations want to see.
Max, what's one thing you do now that you wish you'd started 5 years ago?
The thing really, and it's almost like, and you hear it again and again, and it applies. It's kind of keep building your list, start building your list way earlier, and make sure that all the contacts you have assembled over your career find their way into your list. I think that's kind of key. But yet again, how much can you handle as an individual? And I think that's a permanent struggle as a solopreneur, entrepreneur.
I think that's absolutely true. I mean, this is the most common answer that I hear. And it's this whole thing of what's the best time to plant a tree 25 years ago.
Absolutely.
What's the next best time? It's right now.
Right now.
Max, you've been an awesome guest. I've had great fun. It's been great to burrow into your business a little bit. I feel it's just such a privilege for me to get to be so nosy. So thank you so much for indulging me.
Bob. I really appreciate being here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before I go, just a quick reminder to subscribe and join our Facebook group. You'll find a link in the show notes or visit amplifyme.fm/insiders. Also connect with me wherever you hang out. You'll find me on all the social platforms at Bob Gentle. If you enjoyed the show, then I would love a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It would make my day. And if you shared the show with a friend, you would literally make my golden list. My name's Bob Gentle. Thanks to you for listening, and I'll see you next week.